All right, now that we know what the fourth and fifth steps of analyzing the script for design look like, now we get to put them into practice. What I have on the screen is a Google Sheets in which I'm going to collect all the needs of the script. I do this for every single play I design. Now, granted, when I'm designing a play, I'm usually either designing for costumes only or for lighting only, and so my needs are just for those design areas. Um, but you and I, this semester are going to be doing it for all four design areas. And this is going to help us much later on when we're actually designing each of these four areas for the play Trifles. So over here is where I'll put if it's either a set design, costume design, lighting design, or sound design. And here's where it is in the script. Now, usually you're designing full-length plays, so they have multiple acts and multiple scenes. So this would be act, scene, page number, because we want to know exactly where in the script this need takes place. Um, if somebody says, oh, my hat nearly blew off in Act 1, Scene 2, we want to make sure that we have that need for Act 1, Scene 2. We're not like, oh, well, he needs a hat, but we don't know where it goes, and give him the hat in Act 2, Scene 3 when he doesn't need it. Um, this is where we list the actual need. It's really great that we're doing this on the computer because we can just copy and paste. And here's where we tell if it's a stage direction or dialogue. Now you can set yours up a little differently than I do, so whatever works for you, but this is the basic information you're going to need. Instead of doing the page or line number, we're actually going to do dialogue. I'm going to quickly run a spell check because I don't spell very well. No spelling suggestions. Well, I guess that means this one is spelled that way. All right, so now we have everything spelled correctly. We can go to the actual script. So here we have the beginning of Trifles. We don't need this information. This doesn't have anything to do with the script. It's just when it was first performed. Here we have the character list. Again, we don't really need that right now. And here we have the opening scene directions. This is where the money is. So the kitchen is now I think this is supposed to be the word in instead of is. The kitchen in the now abandoned farmhouse of John Wright. A gloomy kitchen and left without being put in order. Unwashed pans under the sink, a loaf of bread outside the bread box, a dish towel on the table, other signs of incompleted work. At the rear, the outer door opens, and the sheriff comes in, followed by the county attorney and Hale. The sheriff and Hale are men of middle life. The county attorney is a young man. All are much bundled up and go at once to the stove. They are followed by the two women. The sheriff's wife first. She is a slight, wiry woman, a thin, nervous face. Mrs. Hale is larger and would ordinarily be called more comfortable looking, but she is disturbed now and looks fearfully about as she enters. The women have come in slowly and stand close together near the door. So this is a landmine of great design needs that the author has given us. So the kitchen in the now abandoned farmhouse of John Wright, a gloomy kitchen, and left without having been put in order, unwashed pans under the sink, a loaf of bread outside the bread box, a dish towel on the table, other signs of incompleted work. So this is all having to do with the same idea, right? The idea that it's all very messy and sad. So we're going to copy all of that. We're going to move over here. We're going to say set. This little bit of dialogue isn't, it's just the introduction. We're going to paste our needs right here, and we're going to wrap it so that it's all in one box, and this is a stage direction. And now we can move on to the next bit of stuff. So at the rear, the outer door opens and the sheriff comes in. So we know that in the playwright's mind, the outside door was at the rear of the house, meaning upstage, right, at the back of everything. We don't necessarily have to put it there unless it becomes pivotal later on, but it's good to have this little bit. So set introduction. We're going to copy and paste. And this is stage direction. And we'll go back. The sheriff comes in, followed by the county attorney and Hale. Because we're focusing on set right now, I'm going to ignore all of this about what the men look like. All are much bundled up, and go at once to the stove. So now we know that there needs to be a stove. So we will copy that. Come over, set, introduction. There is a stove, and this is stage direction. They are followed by the two women. Okay, so here the only other thing talking about the stage is and stand close together near the door. Now we already know that there's a door. We've already talked about there being the door, so we don't need to say this again. So now let's look at this for lighting design. Now there's nothing in here about light, like, oh, it's he turns on a light, or she brings in a lamp. There's nothing like that. But we do have this amazing word here, gloomy kitchen. Now when you picture something that's gloomy, it's probably not bright, right? It's probably a little dark. There's not a lot of like happy light going on. So a lighting designer would look at that and say, oh, I need to work that into my lighting design. So we're going to copy gloomy kitchen. We're going to come over here and say lights. We're still in the introduction. Here we go. And stage direction. Now let's focus on costume, because that was really the only light thing that we have there. So the sheriff comes in, followed by the county attorney and Hale. So the sheriff and Hale are men of middle life. We're going to copy this and paste it. Now, usually you would be like, well, like, isn't that the casting director's problem? Is what the characters look like, how old they are? And the answer would be kind of, but not really. Think about high school productions. In high school productions, you have students from 14 to 18 years of age, generally, playing an entire spectrum of ages. Now, when that happens, it's up to the costume designer and the makeup technician and designers, which fall under costumes, to make sure that those very young men look like they are of middle age. So that's why we use the character descriptors as costumes. The county attorney is a young man. Copy. So again, we have costume, we have introduction. We are going to paste and come over here, and we're going to flip that just like that. All right. What do we have next? All are much bundled up. Okay, so they're bundled up, they're in their wintry stuff. I'm picturing like scarves, but we're not going to put that because that's just what's happening in my head. That's not what the script is saying. Now, here when it says all are much bundled up, I'm going to look at this in a few days or maybe even a couple of weeks, and I'm not going to know who all are. So here I'm going to put in parentheses, Sheriff, Hale, and County Attorney. That way when I go back and I look at my needs sheet, I know exactly who needs to be bundled up because I'm not going to remember. Now, we would go on, and you will go on. Through here, you'll talk about the women. You'll talk about one's a slight and wiry woman, the nervous face. You'll talk about larger, would ordinarily be called comfortable. And you'll put that in there. But I want to skip ahead because I don't want this to be too much time. And now we started with the dialogue. So the county attorney, this feels good, come up to the fire ladies. We already know that there's a stove, so the fire doesn't really matter. Mrs. Peters, after taking a step forward, I'm not cold. Now, this is one that we could put in there or we don't have to, right? If she's saying she's not cold, it could be that she's bundled up better than all of the other people, right? Maybe she has mittens or a thicker scarf. I, though, am reading between the lines and I'm saying that she's not actually meaning she's not cold, because here we have the women have come in slowly and stand close together near the door. So they don't want to actually come in the house. The men have come in, they've gone to the stove, they're making themselves at home. The women don't want to do that. And if he's saying come to the fire and she's like, I'm not cold, I'm taking that to mean that it's not that she really isn't cold, it's that she doesn't want to go into the room any further than she already is. So I personally would not add that, but you can if you want to. Sheriff, unbuttoning his overcoat and stepping away from the stove. So, unbuttoning his overcoat. This tells us that he needs an overcoat. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come over here. This is a costume. And it's not the introduction, so we're not going to put that, but we are going to paste. It is still stage direction. But this is actually the 1, 2, 3. This is the third paragraph of dialogue. So I'm going to come over and say third. Like I said, this is what's going to get sort of difficult keeping track of where we are, because you're going to have to count each little bit. What I would suggest is maybe copying this whole thing and pasting it into a Word document. And that way, when you take something from here, I could highlight this and then maybe type 3. And so then if they say something down here and I'm going to take it from here, I don't have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can say, oh, well, that's 3. I'll just start here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's no good way to do this. Just because the script is so short, it doesn't really have page numbers. It doesn't have acts and scenes. So this is what we're doing for this script. And you will go down all the way, okay? If it's in the dialogue, you'll put it over here in the dialogue. If it's a stage direction, you'll put it here. Please take your time with this. You have an entire week. This isn't due until Friday's assignment. So really it's not due till Monday, because I give you until Monday to turn in everything on Friday. So you have the whole rest of this week. You will not be able to get everything you need by reading it through once. It will not happen. You will miss things. So read this through more than once. Make sure that you're getting all the information that you need. If you turn it in on Monday and there are things missing, that's on you. Because I have given you so much time to do this in. And look, I mean, we've barely gotten anywhere into the plate and we already have all of these cells filled in. Now, you might wonder why we didn't just put all of this set stuff in one cell. For one, that's just too much, right? We would read that and we would get lost in it. And for two, it's different parts of the set. So this is the overall feel of the set, the overall look, how everything's messy and gloomy and sad. This is specifically for an entrance and exit. This is specifically for a piece of furniture, the stove. Okay? The same reason why we didn't just lump all of the costumes into one cell for the introduction. It's because here we're talking about what these two gentlemen look like. And really, if I were doing this, I would have separated it out. I would have said sheriff, man in middle life, Hale, man in middle life in a different cell, but I didn't want to give you that much work. So take your time, be very detailed. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.